Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all our viewers to our live series on Complementary and Alternative Medicine, where we will be talking about health and fitness, dietary and nutritional well-being, psychoneuroimmunology, and many such related topics. Today, our topic is holistic and integrated approaches to cancer, and we are in conversation with Mr. Vijay. Welcome to the show, Vijay.
Thank you, Mridu. Very happy to be here on your show.
We are so happy to have you. To start with the introductions then, I am Mridu Gupta. I am CEO of CAPED, Cancer Awareness, Prevention and Early Detection Trust. If you have been following us on social media, if you know about us, you will know we work in the area of cervical cancer largely. We are a grassroots NGO and have been in the field for over 6 years. We work in screening and education in the economically weaker sections and in areas where there is less information on cancer. But awareness we create across all strata of society. We work with corporates, with schools, colleges, across all strata of society. We work with awareness. So far, we have stayed with mainstream information and awareness on cancer prevention and care. And in the last few years, we have reached out to over 19 million people, and we realize our responsibility in bringing to our followers and viewers a more inclusive and a larger world view on tried and tested interventions in this area. We want you to know all that there is to know about cancer care so that you can make more informed decisions for yourself and for loved ones if the need arises. Our first guest on this journey of information is Mr. Vijay Bhatt. Vijay is founder, director at Cancer Awakens. This is going to be a slightly longish introduction. Please stay with me. There's a lot he's done and there's a lot I have to talk about. So his personal journey as a cancer thriver is amazing, and we'll have him share that with you in a minute. Vijay says, cancer healed me. Isn't that just the most beautiful way of looking at one's cancer journey? Which is why he's a cancer coach. He pioneered cancer coaching in India and provides a structured thriver coaching program to people facing cancer. He also trains and certifies cancer coaches or Sherpas to deliver this program. Which reminds me, we meet a lot of people who tell us that they want to do something and they want to give back to society because they are cancer survivors or because they've lost somebody to cancer. And I was thinking this is a really beautiful way to do that. CAPED is a result of my having lost my mother to cancer also. And I think if you really want to do something, this would be a beautiful way to be certified and help somebody one-on-one through your journey and your experience. So that would be a wonderful thing for people to look at. I would love to tell them that. Anyway, he and his wife have also co-authored a book, My Cancer is Me, My Journey from Illness to Wholeness. Vijay also leads Stress to Swasthya and resilience programs for corporate audiences, and we will be partnering with him and other such coaches to build a series of such workshops for corporates. In his first career of 25 years, Vijay worked in various leadership positions for a global advertising firm. His second career of 13 years was in leadership coaching and consulting for blue chip companies. Reducing the suffering caused by cancer is his swan song. Let's hear more of his journey from him. So tell us, Vijay, how the statement "cancer healed me" came about.
Thank you, Mridu. Thank you for that very kind and very long introduction. I hope your participants are still awake.
I'm sure they are. It's an interesting topic.
So, my journey actually can be broken up into 3 or 4 phases. You know, it's not as if they are exclusive phases. They're obviously overlapped. But the first phase was the phase that most people go through, which is, the shock of diagnosis, all the questions that you ask, feeling violated, feeling ambushed, feeling betrayed by life, and, all those difficult things. Then getting your surgery and your treatments. I would say that was my first phase. It was pretty similar to probably everybody else. But very soon thereafter, I was very lucky to get some really good help in my early days of cancer. And from then on, I've been asking myself, why can't everybody else get the same kind of high quality help? So in a way, very early in my cancer, I started thinking about, what could I do in the future? So the second stage was because my surgery was successful and the doctors gave me the choice of whether to take chemotherapy or not. After looking at all the statistics, after taking second, third opinions, we realized that the difference between taking and not taking chemo in my case, in my specific case, was very marginal. So we chose not to take chemo. And that's how we dived into this whole holistic and integrated program, because then the doctor said, okay, if you're not taking chemo, then that's fine. Now you go away, hope and pray that it won't come back. So I said, hey doc, I'm not a hope and pray kind of guy. I need to know what to do. And so we dived into all these holistic and integrated approaches, and I've been an amazing guinea pig. I've tried everything. I did everything I possibly could myself. And through that process, talking to so many experts in the holistic and integrated field, slowly a framework started to emerge. And so the emergence of that framework, which is captured in our book and which we talk about in our website, etc., was the second stage, or third stage. First stage was the diagnosis and the treatments. The second stage was diving into all these approaches. The third stage was creating a framework. And the fourth stage was really trying out that framework in actual application with cancer patients, and then modifying and improving that framework. So I would say that today we are in stage 5 of my journey, which is really taking this framework to a large number of people. So during this process, to answer your question about cancer healed me, something interesting happened, which is that, again, quite early in my journey, because of the excellent help I got, I realized that I don't like the word survivor. It makes me feel as if I'm just waiting for the next wave to come and dunk me. And then I'll come up for air again, that kind of feeling. So just for my own sake, I started calling myself a thriver. And then I realized that there is something much deeper to it, because we then started studying what other thrivers do. Similarly, I didn't like the word cancer patient. It makes me feel that I'm just, waiting there passively for something to happen to me, because I'm kind of impatient actually. And so in this process, I realized that it is important to flip the paradigm. It's important to shift our mindset. And when we really started looking at this whole idea of healing, I realized that my relationship with cancer had to change. We could not give cancer too much power over me. And when this relationship changes, then what happens is I began to realize that actually cancer has been very good for me in so many ways. We in fact call it a blessing and not a curse.
Wow.
So when you think about cancer like that, when you can flip the paradigm to see cancer as a growth opportunity, then you have to realize very humbly that cancer came to teach me a lot of lessons, some of which I've learned, some of which I'm still learning. But that's why I like to say it's not that I beat my cancer or I won over my cancer or I conquered my cancer. That's not true. Actually, what is true is the opposite, that cancer healed me.
That is truly amazing. I mean, we're so used to just going with the terminology that exists, we don't really question it.
Correct.
But I guess because you're at the other side of it, it's okay for you to question it and say it. But then it's such a positive thing. I guess it gives you that feeling of, of being in power. You're in control of the situation rather
Absolutely.
than controlling you.
Absolutely.
Which I think mind games are the biggest winners. But you had it all. I mean, you did go through surgery and all before you moved to, the other, all the other interventions, or when you studied them. Do you think that is still an important part of cancer care? I mean, how much do you think of the conventional diagnostics and treatment and all? How much of that is important for you?
Oh, it's extremely important. It's extremely important. Look at me. I'm here because the Western medical system worked for me.
So you say that is where it starts. I mean, one wouldn't know you have cancer till you don't get a biopsy. So I mean, that would be where it starts, right?
Well, yes. I mean, if I were to take a really broad view, I would say that if you want to prevent serious illness, then you have to start doing all the complementary stuff well in advance.
Correct.
But even if you get diagnosed, let's face it, what the Western medical system can do, no other system can do.
Right.
Having said that, what it can do is not enough.
Okay.
This is where the complementary part really starts to come in. So make no mistake, just because I didn't take chemo, I'm not an advocate of anybody turning down treatments. I always say to people, look, you please follow what your doctor tells you to do, but you please ask them all the tough questions that you need to ask. Because when you do that, your doctors will respect you, and your doctors will actually make more time for you, because they like to engage with curious and well-informed patients. It may not look like that because they're so busy.
Very busy, yes.
Right? But you owe it to yourself to ask all the tough questions. But I don't think I would advocate to anybody. In fact, there's good research. There's a very famous study from Yale University, which shows that people who take an alternative approach, which means they replace treatments with something else, they have very poor outcomes.
Oh.
And so I'm very clear that the conventional or the mainstream system is very important, and that if your oncologist is your primary physician, you please follow what he or she asks you to do. But don't limit yourself to that, because then you're doing yourself a disservice.
That's what I wanted to ask you. It wasn't necessary for you to take chemo. You had the option of taking it or not. But for a normal cancer cycle, when does one move to CAM? When would they move to complementary? How would that come into the scheme of things?
Well, to answer that question, we have to define what complementary and alternative medicine or holistic and integrated medicine is.
So let's get
clear. So let me start with that and then come back to the question.
Okay.
So first of all, as I said in my book, there is no such thing as alternative. It's only complementary.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had that discussion.
Yes. Now, when it comes to holistic and integrated, these are also words that people mix up a lot. And so the accurate, or at least our definition of holistic means addressing the whole person.
Oh,
okay. That means the physical part of the person, the emotional part of the person, the mental part of the person, the relationship part of the person, and the spiritual part of the person. So, for example, if you take your treatments, but you're also doing something at the level of diet and nutrition, you've added one dimension. If you do something in terms of managing your own emotions, it's become a little more holistic. If you do something in the area of managing your family constellation, for example, or your work-type relationships, then you've added something and made it more holistic. So holistic means a whole person approach or a person-centric approach. Integrated means something else altogether. Integrated means that you combine medical systems. So if you combine the Western medical system with psychology, with yoga, with homeopathy, with energy medicine, with Reiki, that combination of systems is called integrative medicine. So in other words, holistic and integrative is not options. You need both.
Both. Okay.
You need to address all levels of the person, and you need to combine different systems and methodologies, because no one system has all the answers.
Right.
So now who knows how to combine this? Most people don't. We are confused. The internet can be extremely confusing. And this is the role of Cancer Awakens and our Sherpas, which is to be able to understand and help a person deal with all aspects of themselves, holistic, and then combine the systems that are appropriate for them, which is called integrated. So with this definition, now I'll answer the question, when can somebody go for it, right? So we get clients who call us literally 2 days after the diagnosis, because their psychology, their emotional state is completely wrecked just with the diagnosis. So we give them some counseling or some help maybe at the time of diagnosis. Or somebody is in the middle of their treatments and they are having lots of side effects, and they're having all kinds of issues with regard to their treatments. So we can help at that stage as well. But the people who we help the most are the people who've probably finished their first round of treatments. And then they are asking themselves the big questions. What's going to happen in my life? What's going to happen to the family? Do I get back to work or don't I get back to work? What happens to my financial situation, which may have been wrecked by cancer? So when they're asking all these questions and they don't know whom to go to for the answers, the doctors don't have the time, right? The counselors are mostly associated with hospitals. And once you're out of that treatment, then you're kind of on your own. So that is the most important moment when most people come to us. Some people also come to us towards the end when they are in palliative, because now they have to confront their mortality, their impending mortality. So in other words, the idea that you can heal yourself can happen anywhere in this journey and can continue anywhere in this journey. Does that answer your question?
That does. It's an amazing feeling to be able to do that for people. So you're saying that it involves multiple things. It's what the counselor does, including what a doctor would do, and then handling them in various ways, supporting them. So when one person finds out about cancer, it's like a roller coaster the minute you find out, right?
Absolutely.
They start your chemo immediately, and the biopsy reports have come in. One doesn't get time to think.
Yes.
By the time you actually stop and think, you've probably done a couple of rounds of chemo, and that's when the whole family actually comes down to thinking. I mean, that's what happened with us and with the people that we see. So you're saying whenever they come to realize that I should be doing more than just this, they can start with the holistic and integrated program, right? Whenever, as and when.
That's right.
You have to know that there are other ways to heal myself than just chemicals and medicines, right?
Yeah, see, people like you and me, and perhaps most of the people who are on this talk, Mridu, are reasonably well informed that there are lots of options. So it's not that they are not aware. People struggle to actually have a good framework to bring it all together. We don't know how to bring it together.
That's true. But also a number of people are afraid to try something else. There is the fear that if I add something, it might dilute what I am doing with my medication, or it might harm what that though they may know about a lot of things, and once you get any kind of disease, you have so many people giving you so much of advice that you don't know where to go and whom to pick up, right? So even that becomes like you need someone to give you the right information. That is where people get stuck. You need someone to tell you that I have done it, and this is what I suggest.
Yeah. We must bear in mind, though, that, when the doctors tell you, look, don't take anything while you're still taking your chemo or you're still taking your radio, we must respect that, because we don't know what impact the two may have with each other. But that is only for stuff that you ingest.
Right.
But no doctor will stop you from taking a healthy diet. No doctor will stop you from doing yoga, exercise, sleeping better. Nobody will stop you from taking emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. In fact, they'll encourage it.
Encourage it, absolutely. Yeah,
so I don't think that it's a question of lack of awareness. I think it's more about not being sure how to bring it all together. And therefore, if you have a strong framework, then that framework is reassuring for people. And if you have people who've been experienced in it, then that is reassuring to people, which is where we come in.
That's the right kind of information. You said sometime back, Vijay, that if you want to be disease-free, you've got to start doing these things even before the disease. So you're talking about preventive care, right? When we do conventional, we talk about managing family history, we talk about vaccines. For cervical cancer, we talk about vaccines, we talk about nutrition, yes, we talk about exercises. These are all, keeping an eye on symptoms. This is what usually preventive care covers. But you have a completely different approach that we've spoken about, right? You're talking about psychoneuroimmunology, which is a fairly new kind of approach to being disease-free. You want to tell us a little more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So psychoneuroimmunology is really the philosophical or the scientific underpinning of our approach. And for someone like me who's grown up, I call myself an open-minded skeptic. So as somebody who's a skeptic, I want to know that whatever we are offering is based on good, solid science.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So when we actually started reading and doing all the research, we realized that this field of psychoneuroimmunology is actually not very new. It's 50 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it was kind of brought to light by probably the most famous book on it is called Molecules of Emotion. And the second book is called The Biology of Belief. Now, what these books show through some very solid research is that our thoughts and feelings, psycho, has a direct impact on our neurological system, neuro, and that has a direct impact on our immune system or the endocrine system, immunology. So psycho, neuro, immunology. So there is clear scientific proof that the type of thoughts and feelings that you have has a direct impact on your immunity. So in other words, if you want to keep your immunity up, then you have a lot of control over how you can do that. Similarly, if you let those things slip, your immunity will drop. So now if you know this, let's say if you have cancer in the family, let's say many people have cancer in the family and they're very worried. And so we say to them, look, don't be overly worried because a lot is in your hands. And so if you start doing things for yourself to keep your immunity in a good condition, that is your best defense against both the recurrence of cancer, but also the occurrence of cancer. And so if you can say that, yes, let me take charge of my immunity and let me deal with it at the physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual level, then we are taking a holistic view of immunity. And if you look at it today, the sexiest area of cancer research is immunotherapy.
Correct. That's what everyone's talking about now.
But why not do immunotherapy for yourself? So that is really what psychoneuroimmunology is. There is a even more modern word these days. It's called epigenetics, which means something that is beyond genetics. And it's basically the same thing or a similar thing actually.
Yeah, we did see that. But when I was doing the study, the furthest back I could go for papers on on psychoneuroimmunology was 2011. I couldn't find anything before that. Were there no scientific papers on it before that? Was it just books, or was it something that was...
No. This is research that's been done in many top US universities since the 70s, actually.
Oh,
So maybe the language of psychoneuroimmunology was not used at that time, perhaps. But we have a list of those articles. I'm happy to share them with you or any of your viewers if you would like.
That would be wonderful.
Sure.
Also, when you say, I mean, these days, of course, immunity is the buzzword. Everybody's talking about immunity. So I guess we are talking about cancer, but this can be used for almost all diseases.
Yes.
And if improving your immunity protects you from cancer, it probably protects you from a lot of other diseases, right? So
yes.
What are these? What is the scope of this entire psychoneuroimmunology? What would you say it is for the human?
Well, look at the current situation, right? We are facing COVID, and everyone is talking about immunity.
Exactly. Virus, immunity, all of that.
Exactly. So the immune system is one of the 12 key systems of the body, but it is perhaps one of the least known and the least understood. And so even when you talk to your doctor friends, when you ask them, they'll be able to tell you chapter and verse about the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the neurological system, the skeletal system, etc., etc., etc. But when you ask them about the immune system, actually it dries up. And so I feel as if what nature has blessed us with, which is to give us the ability to repair and recover, which is what the immune system really does. I don't think this has been fully understood. And I think that this is a very exciting space. Now, interestingly, the traditional systems, traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda and many of the traditional systems have a very strong view of immunity. And so I think that there is a lot of opportunity for the modern researchers to also learn from some of the traditional systems, as much as the practitioners of the traditional system have to learn from modern research. And so I actually feel that immunity is a tremendously powerful thing that we have, that nature has already blessed us with. And it is now up to us. It's not about taking a pill or taking a tonic. It's about leading a life which puts immunity up front. And if we can do that, then that, as I said, is our best defense against both the occurrence and the recurrence of many, many, many illnesses, including cancer.
Exactly. And that's where we want to go. I mean, our name says that we are cancer awareness, prevention, and early detection. So prevention, really, we want to create awareness of the various preventive measures. So prevention is one of the biggest things. And once you're empowered to know what you need to do, then, of course, it's in your hands. Then you've got to do it if you really want to be healthier.
That's right.
But what is the biggest immunity buster in the system as a person? What do we do that actually brings our immunity down? I know you said you have a stress assessment,
yes,
metrics and things like that. What, according to you, is the biggest immunity?
Yeah, I believe that the modern stressful lifestyle is probably the single biggest factor that pulls our immunity down today. Now, many people will argue that, oh no, it's about chemicals in the food, it's about radiation in the environment because of mobile phones and all that. And to some extent, that may be true. But my personal opinion is that it's the stressful lifestyles that we lead that compromise immunity. Again, this is well shown through science that when you lead a very stressful lifestyle, your energy and your attention and even your hormones now go to deal with that stress. So the immune system starts to deal with the stress that the body is facing to protect you. And when it does that, it can, in a way, take its attention away from the serious illnesses that you might be open to, right? So I believe that stress is the main factor. And again, one of the problems with stress is that it's become a word that everyone uses, but nobody fully understands. And the fact that, again, stress comes at each of these 5 levels. There is physical stress, there is emotional stress, there's mental stress, there's relational stress, and there's spiritual stress. So we don't know that these 5 components are there. We don't know how to diagnose our own stress. Stress is very personal. So if what stresses Mridu will not be what stresses Vijay. So therefore, I think it's perfectly fine to say to Mridu, chill ya. Take it easy, relax ya. Because that thing doesn't stress me, but it stresses you.
Absolutely.
Right? So how can we arrive, just like with cancer, how can we arrive at a common language and a common way of understanding, a common way of diagnosing, and a common way of measuring stress? If we can do that, then I believe that CAPED or Cancer Awakens or any other organization who's in this space can actually start to offer some really powerful technologies, methodologies, tools. There are thousands of them out there. They're all effective, but they're not aligned to any one framework. And so I think what we have done is we have created a framework on which you can put all these things together. You know, it's like the skeleton.
And then you see what works for you.
I mean, exactly, because every constitution is different.
Exactly. But stress has been a mainstream word for a long time now.
Yes.
Lifestyle diseases, they say, come from stress. India has the cardiovascular disease. Our stats are the highest. So we've been talking about stress. And now with what has been happening, of course, stress I think it's shot through the ceiling now with everybody. Yeah. It's got financial, work issues, family issues, kinds of things. So when you say that you have a framework and you can put it into that, is it specific? Are you dealing with relationships? Are you dealing with stress in the workplace? Because that's almost like an organized area that we can go and talk to people and help them to deal with this, right? Rather than try to pick them up from their homes and speak to them. So is there any way to deal with stress in the workplace independently and then stress at home independently? Are there different structures for that? Or are there different structures just constitutionally?
No, no. So there is what I spoke about, the 5 levels of stress is really for any individual. But in the same way as there is a framework for individuals, workplace stress has also been researched and documented, may not be in India as much, but in many parts of the world for many years. And so therefore there is a framework, but I don't think that framework is as easy to grasp or as easy to use as it needs to be. Also, let's be clear that very few companies have taken this upon themselves as a primary responsibility. So what has happened in the organized sector is that apart from the few blue chips or apart from the very progressive organizations, most people say that, look, this is a private thing, this is a personal thing, we will support you. So if you want a gym membership, we'll subsidize it. Or if you want a free health check, we will give it to you too. Right? But to come up with a properly thought through, systematic, structured program where there is a diagnostic, there is a protocol, there is a metric, I don't think has ever happened. And this is our program. This is the Stress to Swasthya program, which says when the company and the individual come together, operating to the same framework, there is an organizational set of inputs and there is an individual set of inputs. And when they come together, you have the best chance of keeping your immunity up. And in today's world, you have your best chance of preventing burnout. So in today's world, it's not just stress anymore. It's actually burnout.
Absolutely.
WHO has recently classified burnout as an occupational syndrome.
My goodness.
Now in today's world, WHO credibility is a little low, I know.
I was just going to say that.
But in all the other things that WHO does really well, one of the things that they are really concerned about is the rates of burnout. And so I think when we are going from the lockdown into the new normal, with businesses being disrupted, with HR policies having to be completely relooked at, with the work from home, consulting, etc., I actually think the levels of stress are going to go up and not down. And I believe that actually this is the time when companies have to come up and look up to their employees and say, look, you do your bit, we will do our bit, and together we'll be able to handle this. Now, they need help. And again, this is where, our programs will come.
That's right. But burnout is a big issue with corporates. Why wouldn't they be working for it? Why wouldn't they? What is it that everybody has accepted that, physical fitness is necessary. They do that. You have, even their canteens are associated with the right kind of food. They have organizations that actually give them the health foods and things like that. Why wouldn't they take to something like this? What do you think is the hurdle to people actually accepting, understanding, and doing this? I'm sure we've spoken to all these 1,000 people today, out of which less than 5% will actually get out there and do something about it. What is it that stops us from actually taking care of our health?
As I said, I think it is a lack of awareness of the holistic approach. I think that we put all our energy, or most of our energy, into the physical side. So we look at diet and nutrition and rest and laughter and exercise.
Something that's
but we don't look at the emotional side. We don't look at the mind, which is why mental illness, just look at the recent suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Arising out of depression. So when I go to organizations, I often say to people, I said, look, stress is responsible for what I call the 5 deadly Ds. D for dog, right? And what are those 5 deadly Ds? One is disease. We've talked about it. The second is depression. If you see, the rates of depression are going up everywhere. A lot of it is due to this. The third is debt. If you see the amount of debt people are under, EMI for home, EMI for car, EMI for vacation, EMI for credit card, etc., then that's the third D, which is debt. The fourth D is divorce. If you look at the rates of divorce everywhere in the world and now in India as well, right? Now, does stress cause divorce or divorce causes stress? Both are true.
True.
Right?
True.
And the last one, people are surprised by this, the last D is drinking. And so again, people drink to release stress.
Stress, that's what you always hear.
But you drink so much that it now affects your productivity, it affects your immunity, and now you're going to go into a cycle of stressing yourself out. And so now when you see these 5 Ds, drinking, divorce, disease, depression, and debt, you can actually see that there is a big social issue here that we are completely blind to. And I'm talking about governments, I'm talking about companies, I'm talking about individuals.
So I was in fact going to ask you, Vijay, is there anything that I know, like you said, that it's not very easy to understand and it's a structure that people need help to understand. But if you were to ask if people who have to deal with stress at an everyday level, is there something that you could maybe help them with? Is there something that you could tell them that they can do just to make it easier to do?
Yeah, so we teach in all our workshops, we teach like a 10-minute presence practice.
Okay.
And it is something that we have put together from all our research and all our experiences. And we realize that in the modern busy world, people don't have the time or the luxury to be able to take a 1 hour break or go to the gym or swim and things like that. So if you can't do that, then at least you can give yourself this 10-minute presence practice. And so if any of your viewers are interested, it's a free download. You can get it from our website, or I'm happy to send you the link for it and you can share it on your Facebook and so on. But so what we say is that, that is a start point. If you can do that, then you are giving yourself a good start, but it's not enough. You really have to take a diagnostic. You have to understand which are the parts of you that need help, and then start taking some concrete steps in that direction. So it is a journey, but I would say that the first step is the awareness that stress is multidimensional.
And the second is to start doing some practice. We offer the presence practice. Yeah, so here's a question from Mr. Das. It says, is CAM a new approach to management of cancer cases? No, I don't think CAM is a new approach. I think as an approach, it has been there, but perhaps it has not been so upfront and so explicit in the sense that you can treat it as an alternative approach. So, for example, people have used dietary methods, people have used yoga, Ayurveda, homeopathy, so many different approaches to support their treatments. So I would say that no, actually CAM is probably much older than the traditional medical or the conventional medical systems that we use. Question number 2, CAM and palliative medicine are the same. No. Let me explain what palliative means. Palliative, the actual meaning of the word palliative is basically to be able to manage pain. And the word palliative is used in cancer when you're talking about people who are past the treatment stage and who are considered to be in the palliative stage of cancer. So, yes, complementary medicine, complementary approaches can be very useful at that stage when people are in a palliative stage. But complementary medicine, as I said earlier, can also be effective when people are just diagnosed. It's effective when people are undergoing treatment. It's effective after they have undergone treatments. So CAM or complementary medicine is not just limited to the palliative stage at all. Do you think the holistic approach of cancer is more time consuming than chemo and radiation? If yes, why should a person choose the holistic approach? Well, it's like asking the question, is chemo and radiation more time consuming than surgery? Yes, it is. But why do we still do it? We do it because each of these elements has a specific role to play. So surgery has a role to play, chemotherapy has a role to play, radiotherapy has a role to play, immunotherapy has a role to play. In the same way, the complementary approaches also have their own role to play. Now, it is right that many complementary approaches do take quite a lot of time, and which is why we keep saying that the earlier you start doing a complementary approach, the better it is.
What is the impact of the CAM approach you have seen in your journey? Oh, well, as I said, in my case, apart from the surgery and apart from my regular follow-ups, it's all been a complementary approach. And when I say complementary, I mean all the way from Ayurveda to Chinese medicine to energy medicine to yoga to meditation to diet and nutrition, hypnotherapy, you name it. So it's been a very, very impactful thing for me. Sometimes people
ask you, sorry, have they asked you the
go
first
ahead.
question, the palliative care and CAM? Did you get that
Yes.
question too?
Yes.
You answered that?
I answered that. Right now, I'm on question number 5.
Right. Sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
Sometimes people use herbs, vitamins, mineral supplements as CAM without experts' advice and monitoring. Can't it have side effects, make the situation worse? That way, isn't CAM a bit? Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And as I said earlier in the conversation, that in the same way as you have a primary physician on the medical side, you need to have a primary caretaker or physician on the complementary side. And ideally, the two of them should be talking to each other, not fighting with each other. Now, if you can find a way by which you are getting good advice on the complementary side and not casual advice, or you're not trying to dose yourself, then it's useful. So I would not advise doing anything complementary as a do-it-yourself kind of a thing. Please check out, please go and have good conversations with practitioners, ask them all the tough questions. And if you can't make sense of it on your own, then come to organizations like Cancer Awakens or CAPED, and then we will help you to tailor a program that makes sense for you.
So I have a question which says, I think they may have missed the beginning, because they say, what was your first reaction when cancer got confirmed and how did you handle it? You have answered that, but I mean, just the same as anybody else, but would you want to kind of?
Yeah, sure. So I was diagnosed with cancer within a month of my 40th birthday. So I had never had a serious illness before, and we were living in London. And when the cancer diagnosis was given to me, I was completely shocked. The first thought that went through my mind was, that's it, I'm going to die. Because like everybody else, I had equated cancer with death and not cancer with life. And then my second thought was, what's going to happen to my family and my children? Because the children were only 11 and 8. And Nilima was then only, that's my wife, she was only 35 or 36. And then all the emotions, the anger, the pain, the vulnerability, the fear, the anxiety, I felt all of it. And I still feel it sometimes today. So I want to just let people know that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be fragile. It's okay to be emotional. Because, hey, let's face it, when you have cancer, you're dealing with your own mortality. And as a species and as a society, we are not well prepared to deal with that. So I faced everything that every cancer patient faces. I still face it. I'm not ashamed of it. And I invite people to face it and deal with it authentically.
I guess that's why the counseling works, because you've been through it all. I mean, you know, you've responded just the way everybody responds to cancer. And then you've come to where you are. So I have another question, Vijay, that is from another area of your work, I guess. She says, I have seen your other videos. So my question is from them. I guess there is a thin line between assertive and aggressive response. How to identify that thin line? Also, which responses are better, assertive or submissive? I guess that's a different video that they've watched. They've probably been to your site. Okay.
Yeah, they've probably been to my site and seen some of my leadership videos. So this person is talking about the leadership skill of asserting. And while I'd love to answer this question, I invite this person to write to me directly, please, because I think this question may not be relevant for a majority of people in today's audience. I'm very happy to answer this question, but I invite this person to, whoever this person is, Mridu, please just put up my email ID and say that, write to Vijay and he will respond to you privately and personally on this one.
We'll do that. We'll DM the video. There are people who've asked for links. Have they asked you that? We'll have to put up the links. Did that question come up?
Someone, no, not yet come up.
Okay. Someone wanted to read more about psychoneuroimmunology and they said, where can we read it?
Yeah, so I will just put up in the chat box, I'll put up our website link.
And we'll share that on all the platforms that are there.
Yeah, I'm just doing that now.
There is another question.
So I've just put up our website link.
cancerawakens.com.
If you go to our website, we've been at it now for 10 years. So we have some really good content. And if you just go to the search bar and type psychoneuroimmunology, I think you'll get 8 or 10 different articles on it. We have a list of books, book reviews, book recommendations. So some of the books that I talked about, we have actually reviewed on our site. So there's plenty of materials on it, and it's all pretty solid.
So please share that then, Nimit, on the page. There is another question says, are there any risks involved in this approach?
In which approach?
In the holistic and integrated approach. I think because when you go in for chemo and all, they tell you what the risks are and they tell you that there are going to be side effects and things. Are there any risks
Yeah, I don't think there are risks in the methodologies per se. It's like saying, is there a risk in doing yoga? Or is there a risk in doing hypnotherapy? Or is there a risk in changing your diet? I don't think there is a risk in the methodology per se, but if the methodology is not practiced by a real expert, then there is a risk. And if the methodologies are not combined well, then there is a risk. So I guess, and those risks are generic risks, and they will be explained to you by the right people who understand the methodologies, just like your oncologist will explain to you what the risks are. So for example, if you're going to do, let's say, hypnotherapy, then the hypnotherapist can explain to you and say, look, this is how this methodology works. These are the possible benefits. These are some of the risks. This is what you need to be prepared for. And you then decide whether you want to proceed or not. So I don't think that there are any specific risks that I would like to highlight here.
Okay. So I hope that answers everybody's questions. We have no more questions coming in unless my phone has frozen as well. So out of all these questions, what do you think people are, how do you think people are taking the information? I had a question in the beginning that said, is CAM and palliative the same thing? So do you think we should maybe give people a little bit more expansive understanding, and then we could share your links, your videos and things on the platform and help them to understand this a little bit more and to know how they can use it for themselves, right? Because
yes.
we use it as during cancer care, as healing, as well as preventive care. So
yes.
the entire gamut of stuff maybe we can share. So you can share that with us maybe, Vijay, and we will share it with them all.
So one of the points I'd like to make, if we have a few minutes. Do we have a few more minutes, Mridu?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So the first point I want to make is to draw the distinction between curing and healing, because these are also two words that many people use interchangeably. And just like I drew the distinction between holistic and integrated, I want to draw the distinction between curing and healing. So one of the big questions that we ask is, when the doctors are treating the disease, who is healing the person? And so this question actually gets to the heart of the difference between curing and healing, which is that what the medical approach does really well is to aim for a cure using surgery or chemo or radio or whatever it is, right? So curing is an outside-in approach. Curing is focused on the disease or on the organ or the part of the body that somebody is working with. And in curing, the doctor has the power. He will tell you what to do because he's the expert. Healing is the opposite. Healing is inside out. Healing can only happen from the inside.
That's beautiful.
Healing is not something that is organ specific or disease specific. Healing happens to the whole person. And therefore, the patient or the person has the power. So now you see that if curing and healing can go hand in hand, then we have a really good chance. And let's face it, cancer is a deadly disease. And we must not leave any stone unturned when it comes to. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point is that we have learned through all our research that there is a spectrum of how to look at your body or how to look at illness. And there are 4 different ways you can look at it. So the first is to look at your body as a machine. And it is partially a machine, right? It functions in a certain way. It has various moving parts and so on and so on and so on. And so you can treat it like a machine and say, okay, this part is not functioning. Let's chop it off. This part is not functioning well. So let's give it a boost with this. This part is not functioning well. So we'll replace it with that. Okay. Now this is taking body as a machine. It's a very important way to deal with it, but it's not enough. The second way is to deal with the body as a system, which means there are linkages between different parts and different elements, and we have to be very aware. So psychoneuroimmunology looks at the body as a system. It looks at the connection between our thoughts and feelings, our neurology and our immunology. So this is a body as system. The third approach is body as organism, which means you start to treat the body like it is an alive and intelligent entity itself. In other words, you can dialogue your body, you can listen to your body, you can engage your body. And the body and you now develop a relationship, which is not just a mechanical one. It's actually an organic relationship, right? And we know this, that our body talks to us in certain ways in expressing its needs. Pain is a way in which the body communicates with us, right? So as you can see, these 3 views, the body as machine, body as system, and body as organism, are becoming subtler and subtler and subtler. And the last one is, we say, body as the canvas of consciousness, which means the body is the canvas on which our consciousness is playing out. So if you truly want to look at healing, not just curing, you have to get away from the body as machine mentality. And you have to start to look at the body at least as a system, perhaps as an organism. And if you're brave enough to go there, then the body as a canvas of consciousness. And this is essentially where our work comes in. We let the doctors do what they do really well, which is body as machine, focus on cure, focus on the disease, focus on dealing with what needs to be dealt with. But the person side of it, body as system, body as organism, body as canvas of consciousness, don't neglect that.
That's beautiful. I mean, that I would love to have this conversation in more depth with you, but that is really beautiful. That takes all the fear out of cancer. It takes all that mechanical mindset of ye karna for cancer care. It just takes it all out of the picture, right? It becomes a more, literally a more...
It's a human thing.
Yes, it's a more humane kind of response to the whole picture. That's beautiful. So I have one question here that's more personal. They say that what were your challenges when you started talking about CAM? How are people responding to CAM?
Actually, people understand this intuitively, because at least in India, we come from a system where because of our traditions in terms of Ayurveda, because in terms of traditions of the way we cook and eat our food, because of our traditions with things like yoga, which is a very holistic system by itself, I would say that the awareness and the acceptance of this conceptually is quite high. What has not been done, and which is where we try to change that, is that it has not been presented to people in a simple and graspable way with regard to their illness. and how you can put these things together. And so, in other words, it is up to us, people like CAPED or people like Cancer Awakens or other such organizations, is to explain to people the role and the benefits of a holistic and integrated approach. Even when I talk at oncology conferences, and I talk at some oncology conferences, and I talk about this approach, right? It's very interesting because inevitably in the break or the lunchtime, the doctors and the oncologists will come and tell me that what you said makes a hell of a lot of sense, and I agree with this. This is absolutely right. How do we make this more available in a more scientific and in a more robust way to people, right? So the question is not about people don't buy the concept. It's about how do we apply the concept and how rigorously do we track it and measure it so that we create a body of work. So my dream is that, we should be in a situation like in some places in China, where if you're ill, you can go to the same hospital and you can either go this way to the conventional medicine, or you can go this way to Chinese medicine, and you can ask that the doctors talk to each other, right? That would be a fantastic place to get to.
That would be wonderful. That would be actually what we should all aim for. That would be really integrated on many platforms. That would be amazing.
That's right.
But this is really beautiful, Vijay, and I really wish we can take this out and get it to corporates and get it to, to people. It's something that we should be talking more about for sure, right? So
yes.
We started the journey. Let's see if we can really build on it, and let's see if we can get it out, because all this, the silent C and, all that fear that cancer has created, and it's everywhere now. Every household has somebody with cancer. So if we could just get this out and put the fear away, there's enough and more to be afraid of these days, and start with preventive care, it would be absolutely beautiful. And I hope we can achieve your dream and our dream, and we can show some impact and some results. That would be wonderful. For now, I think we will go back to our viewers and see if there's anything more that we can do to help them and to get them onto the... there are a couple of questions, but I think you've answered them before.
But if there is something, let me know, and I'm happy to answer them if you think there's something important.
It's something that I think you've answered. They said, how can you decide to come for holistic and integrated approaches after coming to know about cancer? Which is...
So I would say that as of now, I don't know of too many other organizations which offer a structured program around holistic and integrated approaches for cancer. So if somebody is really interested in learning more, we have shared the website. You can talk to us. We have a lot of videos which explain how this approach works. What are some of the things you need to keep in mind? What are some of the commitments that you need to make? It's not an easy journey. It's a tough journey, which is why you need a Sherpa by your side to take that journey. So how to do it, talk to us. We will tell you. We'll answer all your questions as best we can, as honestly as we can.
I'm sure you have some chat feature even on your website. So if they really want to know, they can connect.
Yes, right? Absolutely. You can comment, there's a contact us, all of that. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, all of that.
We may not be able to share your email ID with everybody, but they can come to your site and then...
Yes, and contact us. Yes.
So please do that, everyone who needs to know more. And I really think the cancer coaching program is a wonderful thing for people who want to do more. Try and get in touch with the Cancer Awakens and see how it can work for all of you. And we will definitely be curating workshops that we can take out to people along with Vijay. And we hope to connect with all of you. Can I say thank you to you, Vijay? It was the most amazing session, and it gives me so much of hope and, that a whole lot of positivity about this area, about cancer, which is something we do on all of our talks. We say that you've got to, build hope. So thank you so much. This was really amazing. It was wonderful.
You're most welcome. Thank you for giving me the platform, and thank you for asking great questions. This is my life's purpose. So I'm happy to get every platform and stand up there and say that, look, pay attention to the holistic and integrated side of recovering from cancer. There's a lot that you can do.
Wonderful. And everybody, please hear that. That was an ending line. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.